I'm Melinda Wittstock, the CEO and founder of Verifeed, the social intelligence platform, and I'm also an outlier.
Everybody, welcome to Outlier on Air, the podcast where we interview founders, disruptors, and mavens. As always, I'm your host, Ever Gonzalez. On today's episode, we have Melinda Wittstock, founder and CEO of Verifeed. Melinda, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ever, it's great to be with you.
I'm glad we were able to connect. We had a little bit of a snafu earlier last week, but I'm glad that we were able to connect, and I'm actually really looking forward to having you on the show. Looking at your stuff, you have a ton of knowledge and experience that I think is going to benefit our audience. So again, thank you for being here.
Yeah, great. No, I'm really happy to share, especially with, entrepreneurs just starting out. I think, wow, I wish there'd been some manual or some podcast for me. In the early days, I would have avoided a lot of mistakes. So yeah, no, it's great to be with you.
Good. So now let's paint the picture a little bit for our audience. Where are you calling us from right now?
And so right now I am in Great Falls, Virginia, and I actually live in Bethesda, Maryland, and I'm pretty much virtual. My team is all over the country, and we have some people internationally as well. And I just tend to work from wherever I am, and I have a meeting. It's, a meeting coming up here, and so I'm actually talking to you from my car.
Oh, nice. Wherever you need to be to get the job done, right?
That's right.
It's funny. We talk a lot about these digital nomads and doing work from all over the world as long as we have a cell phone and a laptop, and a lot of business is being done that way. But it's still, is it difficult to be able? You're spread out. What are the pros and cons of living this kind of lifestyle and running this type of business?
Yeah. So the pros are that you can really create a team at much lower expense. Folks can live their dream in like Buenos Aires or wherever they want to be, because it's the cost of living in those countries is much less. But they're American born, so they know and it's highly skilled. And I think we're really moving into what has been called the gig economy, where there are people who just go from gig to gig to gig to gig. And so everybody wins in that scenario. And it's also how most millennials really want to work, because they get the freedom that they want. You can keep your costs relatively low, and it's all good. The downside in my mind, though, is just that I kind of miss the connection you have. Your core team, I think, really needs to be together, not all the time, because you can do a lot of stuff with technology. You can stay pretty well connected. As long as you're aligned on your mission and your values and everybody's going in the same direction, then physical contact doesn't really matter. I think where you run into problems with a virtual office is everybody's doing their own thing, and the company doesn't really have any cohesive organizing principles, mission, or values. So there are ways to do it, and people are getting better and better at doing it. And frankly, it's becoming a necessity.
Yeah, and it's working for you right now.
Yeah, it is. I think just the way Verifeed grew, it wasn't like we had a huge amount of capital to start. So we were pretty lean and scrappy. And you just grow with the resources that you have at your disposal. And all you can really do is make the best decisions with the knowledge that you have at the time and with the resources that you have, and just move, just keep going.
I love it.
And you learn stuff along the way for sure.
Spoken like a true entrepreneur. Good for you. Now,
yeah, right.
Let's get right into this. Let's introduce our audience to Verifeed. What is it? How does it work?
Yeah, so if you can think of Verifeed, just assume you're a fly on the wall and you're listening to a conversation. And in this case, it just happens to be what people are sharing with each other on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And in the course of just everyday regular conversations, people reveal a lot about themselves, their likes and their interests, their hobbies, what's frustrating them, their needs. and inadvertently things that they basically qualified themselves to want to go purchase. And if you're smart and you're listening to all of those conversations, you can really figure out very quickly who your true, we call them tribe, is. So your customers, I mean, your most likely qualified customers. And that way you can really take the guesswork out of marketing, because you know who wants what you're selling before you even started to sell it to them. And so we call all that process social intelligence. And it's done with a mix of human beings who know what questions to kind of ask of the data, but also algorithms that kind of search and filter and parse all these millions of conversations to actually find signal in the noise of all of that, right? So the right bit of intelligence or insight gets to the right person at the right time. And so that's what we do. It's really very much a big data platform. And there's all kinds of different benefits that you get from it, like figuring out who your customers are, as I was just saying, but also figuring out who are the most influential, that if you recruited them on social media, they could be very powerful third-party referees for you and drive the kind of viral outcomes that everybody, of course, wants to see. But you can also see emerging trends. You can kind of see how you're doing relative to your competitors. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things that come from that, business intelligence aspect of what we do. I mean, market intelligence, just that happens to be mined from social conversations. And it also helps you take the guesswork out of marketing. So there are a lot of different benefits to what we do. But I think the most curious thing is what we discovered in the data not so long ago, is we were looking at what made some brands and businesses and individual CEOs even and thought leaders really stand out from the pack and really get a great kind of return on their social media investment, if you will. And we found that authenticity was the key thing. So when companies were speaking in a real human voice and interacting with customers or would-be customers as individuals in a really authentic, genuine way, they were getting massive, just completely leaving their competitors in the dust. And they were doing so much better than everybody else. And then by their own metrics, just much better traffic, much better conversions, better revenue, earnings, even company valuation is something that's affected by that. So we decided that we were going to do something really difficult and try and score authenticity algorithmically. And I'm happy to say we cracked that code. It's
did.
Trust me to go find something really difficult to go do, right? Classic, But anyway, yeah, it's hard, and we're still tweaking it. But we've found that there's a way to actually do that, and there's a way to tie it back to the actual return that you're getting on all those tweets, pins, posts, shares, comments, and all that kind of stuff. So you can actually see how it's affecting your bottom line. So we're really excited. We're building a mobile app that will be your kind of social media kind of sensei, if you will, in your pocket. That will come out and will really, really help everybody just to be their best selves on social media and really get the return that they want.
We hear that word a lot, right? Being authentic or authenticity. What does that really mean, though? I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit. Using your own voice as opposed to company jargon, or tell us about it.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. It's a word that's it's become a buzzword, so it's in danger of being really overused. And so my apologies for jumping in on it. But what it means to us is that really you are the person that you say you are, that there's kind of an integrity there, that you walk your talk, that you are consistent with your mission as a company or the promise of your product. So often when we're doing this, we do a lot of consulting work, and when we're consulting with folks, we spend a lot of time, and perhaps this is the former recovering journalist in me, but we spend a lot of time really getting to the heart of why are you even doing this business? Why do you get up and why do you become an entrepreneur? Why do you decide you're going to sell this or provide this or whatever? And there's usually some really deep personal mission or personal reason. And when people get very in touch with their why, it's much easier for them to be really authentic, and it's much easier for them to connect as human beings with other people who share that same why. So we define it in many ways. We also define it too as not being really overtly salesy. So on social media, when people post things that look like ads, it's really regarded as spam. People like pass right over it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just so like me, and nobody cares. Like there's just too much noise. Whereas if you go and you really genuinely care about your customers or your potential customers, and you ask them questions and you interact with them on a really personal level, and you're very helpful, and you create value, they very soon ask you how to buy from you. It's much more effective, and frankly, it's just the only way that people buy these days.
Is this for corporations and high profile entrepreneurs or CEOs, or is this like for solopreneurs as well?
Well, it's great that you asked that question, because we're in the middle of really kind of like shifting, moving the ship a little bit. So we started out doing enterprise, and it was a big data. So really the only people who could afford us were, bigger brands and businesses, Fortune thousands and pretty big companies. Like you needed at least kind of 5 million annual revenue if you trace that back to your EBITDA or your earnings to be able to afford us. And I am a big believer in democratizing data. I want to make sure that everybody, if I can level the playing field, that's part of my mission. That's awesome. And so that's one of the things that we're really working on doing right now. So with ROA, or return on authenticity, is the name of the product. Yep. Yeah, it's return on authenticity. So it's ROA, which is kind of like, your ROI, your return, from actually being authentic. So it's, I don't know. It works.
No, it works, absolutely.
And so we want to make this very accessible to anybody who is a solopreneur, or a wannapreneur, or a thought leader, or even like a policy, even someone in the nonprofit space who's got like a cause leader. One of the things that we found is that companies also who have a CEO or a founder who invest some time in their own thought leadership and expertise, their company actually does better as well. So we're aiming ROA very much at people who want to be influencers and thought leaders as individuals. And the price point is going to be affordable, really for anybody.
When is that rolling out?
So, oh man, I'm so afraid. Just like if I say fall,
breaking news here. Breaking news.
Say if I say fall, let's call it winter. You know what I mean? Because this is the other big entrepreneurial lesson, right? Yeah. Entrepreneurs are impatient. We always think we can do much more, much faster, much cheaper than we can. But I want to have a really good kind of beta mobile app out there in the fall that our army of sort of authenticity ambassadors are kicking the tires on and helping us make better. So if any of your folks in the audience are really interested in coming and helping us with that, they will have really nice discounted rates for life and all of that. So yeah, we're really excited about it. So we'll keep you updated.
We'll definitely have information on the show notes page with the link.
But people can do it right now even without the app. I mean, we're doing a lot of custom ROA scores for people. It's not exactly manual because our algorithms are doing this work. It's just not in an app yet, so we can still do the work. And we're doing a lot of consulting around this as well, helping people find their voice.
How old is the company?
Oh God, so Verifeed launched officially, I guess, in late 2015, and we kind of incorporated and got going and all that stuff in the beginning of 2016. So not very long.
Well, how big is the team?
Oh God, we're tiny. we're like an accordion that kind of expands and contracts, and so there are like really like 4 really core people. 3 of us full time, and everybody else is just we have a confederation of those gig economy people, people who come and go as we need them, because we frankly want to keep our costs and our burn as low as possible. Sometime later this year or early next year, we hope to do our Series A funding. Nice. So we can get lots of money in and hire all the people that we want to hire, which is like, God, man, you should see my list. I need a lot more help than I have. Yeah, for sure.
And it's funny because obviously you're Verifeed. Cool company, cool concept, a lot of data, right? You're doing a lot of good, Obviously, there's a lot more potential there as well. But so I'm sitting here, and as we were doing research on you and the company, I'm sitting here thinking, you're an award-winning journalist, and your background was kind of almost a little different than this now. Why that corporate structure to jumping all into the startup entrepreneurial world?
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple of clues in there. One is that my first entrepreneurial venture, I trace back to age 5, and it was actually my
Nice,
grandmother who diagnosed it because she said, "You're disruptive." And
nice.
I had just come back from going door to door with my black lab, asking people to prepay for my show. Putting on, I was just like kind of figure skater, ballerina girl at age 5, right? So anyway, but I made $100, right?
Whoa, good for you.
And so I definitely have always had an entrepreneurial gene, and I think that's what made me a good journalist as well, because I was pretty hungry for the story. I wanted to know where the story was going next. I wanted to be first. I wanted to be right. I wanted to kind of predict the outcome. And I also wanted to change something. And so journalism on some level is a very entrepreneurial pursuit, at least at the level that I was at. I joined the Times of London when I was 22, and I wrote business stories. And then I wrote about media and this new thing called the internet. And I got to interview Steve Jobs and all kinds of really cool people. And I learned a lot from the people that I was interviewing. And I then made the switch from print into television. I anchored for the Financial Times and CNBC in Europe and Asia. And then I built a team. I ended up being not only the founder, producer of that show, but also the anchor. So I ran a team of 30 people. I got really used to, obviously hiring and firing and management and a whole bunch of different things. And then the same thing again at the BBC, which is a massive organization. ABC News, same thing, and created a show for the BBC. So, I was always entrepreneurial within larger institutions. And I got to the point where I wanted to be more disruptive than that, going back to what my grandmother told me about myself at a young age. There was a limit to what I could do within a large organization. I really just wanted to fly on my own. I saw problems that I wanted to go and fix. And the ultimate straw for me was, 9/11. And when everybody was talking about our democracy and how important it was to defend, and I realized at the time that nobody was even voting, let alone they didn't even know who their congressman or woman was. And I thought, what could I do as a journalist to change this? And the result of that was Capital News Connection, which was my first significant adult business, which launched in 2002. And we're a news agency covering Congress for something like, we had about 200 radio stations and about 20 television stations, a whole bunch of newspapers.
That's a big deal.
It was a big deal. We had a regular audience of 3 million people. And as that continued, and the media world and technology and everything was changing, I got really excited by crowdsourcing and social networking and how that could change news. And I got more and more interested in technology. And I think it was just a gradual self-education process. I was one of the first 100 users of Twitter, all through that time as, running a content business. And I was fascinated by how journalism could improve by the use of multiple sources and crowdsourcing. So it took me on this trajectory, from Capital News Connection. And then to my next business was News It, which was a mobile app for crowdsourcing the news and crowd collaboration. It was really, really hard to do. Ultimately, the company did not succeed. We had to shut that down, but I learned so much. I think it was kind of like my lab,
So that prepared you for this.
Yes, it did, right? So there is this connection, all the algorithms that I have architected and thought through, because they all come out of my head. I'm not a coder and I'm not a mathematician, but all those algorithms have come out of my head because they're the best practice in journalism. And so all these years later, I'm first right predictive, like I used to be with the algorithms between my ears as a journalist. So it kind of makes sense, right? Anyway, just a big evolution.
What's with what you're doing, right? It's the lofty goals, right? That you're trying to accomplish here, and things that you're trying to do. What's the hardest part, other than maybe this next step of raising money? What's the hardest part of what you're doing right now?
Oh my God. So I'm going to be a bit philosophical here, and I'm going to share with you that my biggest thing is just getting out of my own way. Yeah, like what I mean by that is that nobody can do everything. And when you start a company, often it is just you, especially for all the solopreneurs listening
Hmm.
to this, or when you just start and it's really exhilarating in the first year and you're doing everything yourself. And you get to a point where the company can't grow if you keep doing that. You've got to be able to relinquish control, or like not be a control freak, or not make perfect the enemy of the good, and really double down on your strengths and hire your weaknesses. And that means you need to be pretty authentic. Big thing is, and I've done all these tests and stuff on myself, but I'm a visionary. I'm a futurist. I'm very strategic. I like to start things. I need someone, and I'm actually looking for this person right now. So if there's anyone out there listening, I'm just kind of putting the word out. I'm looking for my what's called an integrator, or that person who loves the detail, loves getting things done, really loves the operations and the nitty gritty and all of that. And I need my operational equivalent. And because I know that I can do all that stuff, and I have loads of times, but the company will grow much faster and be much better if I can hand off some of those things to this magical person that I'm looking for.
Do you know your strengths and your weaknesses? That's so difficult for a lot of us to kind of, first of all, think about, let alone understand. So you're
Oh
obviously
God,
more
yeah,
than well on your
yeah.
way.
It's definitely a work in progress. And there's a lot of different things. There's so many great books and resources out there now, and courses that really help you do this. I mean, one of the things that's been interesting on my entrepreneurial journey is the further and further I've gotten into this, the more I've gotten into meditation and mindfulness and all these different things to really get you in touch with just what your purpose is, in life. Like what are you here to do? Because if you can find alignment between what you're doing as an entrepreneur and what your true purpose in life actually is, your chances of success are like exponentially higher. Like that's probably the most important thing to go do. And keep moving as you're doing it, because you never, yeah, I don't know if that work is ever over actually, but it's helpful for sure.
Obviously, very busy running the show, family at home. This is one of the questions that I like to ask to entrepreneurs, both male and female, because when we're working at a corporate job, we clock out at 5. A lot of times we leave that at work. As entrepreneurs, we take it home. Sometimes we are at home, right? It's 24/7. How do you balance work life, and I mean, how do you shut it off?
Yeah. So it's I call it work life integration. And it's something that I've been working hard at, is just kind of figuring out boundaries around this, and I'm getting better at it. I mean, it doesn't
Nice.
always work, but when I'm with my kids, I'm a single mom, by the way, and so that's not easy. But when I'm with my kids, I'm really try to be 100% with them. Like I try and have really quality time with them, where I'm just like focused on them. And it may not be as many hours of the day, but the hours that I do have with them are quality hours. Like they're memorable, and good. So even if it's an hour, it's better than just being in the same room. So I try and do that. And then when I'm working, I really, really focus on my work. And my kids have grown up watching their mom be an entrepreneur, so they know the drill. And I knew it was sort of really sinking in with them when my daughter, who was like a Montessori child in
Hmm.
5th grade, she said, "Hey, Mom, so can you come speak to my class about entrepreneurship?" And I said, "Oh, hey, Sid, that would be great. Yeah, I'd love to." She said, "Well, here's the thing, Mom, is all my friends think," and she did this motion with her hand, which is sort of like the hockey stick, like this exponential growth thing. She said, "Can you just tell all my friends it's not like that?" And then she did this roller coaster maneuver, right?
Oh,
And
really?
and she knew this because she'd watched me. I mean, she was only 10. And she was like, "Mom, can you just tell it to them like it is?"
That is cool. Good for her. Good for you.
And so the kids are just kind of learning stuff. It's like, it's funny because you hear stuff back to you. You think, God, how did you know that? And it's
It's
like, well, we just listen to you, like do all these sales calls. Like we've listened to you do this or do that,
it's
or
preparing them.
And so definitely there's that. I mean, it's interesting. This is will be one of the themes of a book that I'm writing right now on female entrepreneurship, because I think it's different for women. I'm hoping that it's not as difficult for younger generations coming up than my own. But still, I mean, if you've read any of the stuff in recent weeks about, Silicon Valley, sure, and all these crises around, the VC tapes that revealed that the VCs asked men different questions from women. Yeah. They ask women about how they're going to mitigate loss, and men about how they're going to build the company and how they're going to put a growth multiplier on it, right? They ask women about experience. They ask men about potential. And it's very, very different. And as a result, companies that qualify for VC funding that have a female founder get only 2% of wow. what's available. And even now, right? So it's much, much harder. And so women, I've come to the conclusion that women really need to just chart their own course. And I've had to do that. I've had to bootstrap. I've had to do all kinds of things. I've had to be a lot more creative. But the women who get through this tend to they're much more likely to build companies that last. And I think things are really changing now. So I'm actually very optimistic about where women are in all of this. But yes, so the book that I'm writing is the manual that I wish I'd had. And so one of the things that I will definitely focus on is this work-life balance issue, because, it's not easy. And one of the things you have to do is just figure out what matters to you, what your values are, how you're going to spend your time. And just do the best you can do. I mean, that's all that really matters. Not let yourself be judged by anyone else, but, follow your own kind of North Star. And there's no right answer. You just got to do what you got to do.
I love it. When's this book coming out?
God, I think sometime next year. I mean, I'm just kind of, it's as fast as I can actually write it. I have a publisher and everything, and I'm doing a more of a self-publishing type thing, so I can control. Because I'm a social media maven and all that, I really want it to be a living, breathing community, not just something that sits on a shelf somewhere and gathers dust, you know what I mean? So anyway, I'm hoping that that's out in the spring. That's what I'm aiming for.
Well, we're going to definitely keep an eye on it. So last couple of questions as we wrap this up. In 3 years, when we have you back on the show, what are we going to be talking about?
Oh, my God. Wow, what a great question. Geez, I wish I had a crystal ball. Well, I mean, my book certainly will be here's my bullish projection, right? My book is really going to be a game changer for a lot of women. I'm going to improve and accelerate a lot of female entrepreneurs through my work, which is a really big personal passion thing for me. I really, really care about doing that a great deal. I may or may not have sold Verifeed by then, but whatever the case is, I think ROA is going to be the benchmark, and not a vanity metric for your social performance, but the metric. That's what I want it to be. I want to really change the way people buy and sell products. There's a great deal more kind of transparency and authentic and trusted connection around all that. And the big thing that we're going to go crack is in this increasingly augmented, virtual, artificial intelligence world, how the hell do you know what's authentic?
For sure.
So we have a really big mission sort of in around all that. So, I want to see, my company go really kind of crack that code. And let's see. So best-selling author, game-changing. Who knows? But call me back in 3 years and see if that all happened.
I love it. We're definitely.
If you don't believe it, you can't get there. So mindset is very important.
Agreed. Now you've already given us a lot of tidbits and a lot of advice, and obviously just your story, being able to learn from it. But as we wrap up now, then. Overall, what kind of advice do you have for our audience, right? We talked about it. Some of them 9-to-5ers with a side hustle or looking to jump into entrepreneurship full time. The other half, young entrepreneurs. What can we take from you that's going to get us to that next level quickly?
Yeah, so the most important, there's a couple of really most importance. So not in any particular ranking, my top 3 is if you're launching a business, know your customer, have a pain point that you're actually solving. Like, go do market research, talk to people, make sure, rapid prototype, like whatever it is you're building, selling, creating, make sure that there's a market for it, and talk to your customers. Create value. Like, money follows value creation. So a lot of entrepreneurs make the mistake of going and building something and assuming people will come.
Yep.
And that's the wrong way around. You got to really talk to customers. So right now, that's what we're doing with ROA. We're just basically all we're doing before we really write any code for the native apps. We're just talking to customers, and asking lots of questions. So that's really, really important to really know that and get in touch with that quickly. The other thing, I think I mentioned this already, is really know yourself, know your why. Really understand your mission, and get out there. And when you're selling your product, service, whatever, talk about the why, not the how, not the what. People could care less. Talk about the why, because that's where you will find kind of connection with them. The third thing I would say is put your own education and learning like really first. You can never do too many mastermind groups, too many read too many books, any of those things. Like, it's really important to have a great kind of personal network of people who are going through the same stuff as you, and people you can talk to, a really robust ecosystem, and also people that you can learn from and share with. So, if you haven't already, get yourself an Audible account when you're driving. Read great books or listen to them. Join mastermind groups if you don't have one in your area. Like, create one. Do courses. Really invest in yourself, and it's tax deductible too. So, no, really, really important. Just always be learning. So those would be my top three.
I love it. That's great advice. Outliers, please reach out to Melinda. Obviously, she's doing some amazing work. Has a great knowledge of entrepreneurship in general. Reach out, say hello, connect with her. With that being said, Melinda, where can we find you online?
Oh, yeah. So you can always find me at Verifeed. So like, my website is Verifeed. So VERIF for Fred, EED.com. And you can find me on Facebook, just my name, Melinda Wittstock. And on Twitter, Verifeed is actually known as Veriate, which is weird, but because someone's squatting on our name. And also, if you're interested in being an ROA ambassador, or learning a little bit more about it, you can email me just at roa@verifeed.com. And I also have a special offer for folks, too. For those of you who actually are already launched and on social media and using social media, you have to be doing that to qualify for this. But you can text a word tribal, like TRIBAL, to 44222, and I will do a 15-minute consult with you about ROA and authenticity. And you can, we can chat then about whether or not you're kind of keen on having a little bit of consult or having your score done, or it's kind of like having a palm read or something like that. But anyway, so if you're up and running, you qualify for this. So by all means, get in touch with me that way as well. And it'd be great. I'd be happy to talk to you. Anybody.
Big deal. Thank you very much. What a generous offer. So Outliers, take advantage of it. First of all, subscribe to our podcast, rate, review it, share with your friends. You'll be able to find more interviews with great entrepreneurs just like Melinda. But also on our website, outliermagazine.co, that's outliermagazine.co. We're going to have links to Melinda's website, all of her social media accounts, this awesome offer. So please connect with her. Melinda, again, thank you for being on the show. We really appreciate your time, your words of wisdom, and no doubt that we're going to keep track of you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, hey, it was great. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was really awesome to talk to you.
Perfect. Thank you. Outliers, we'll talk to you tomorrow.